Let's go live and let's hope the connection is stable this time. All right, here we go. We're back, officially streaming from the Weather Center. It looks like there's a bit of a lag. Hopefully we didn't catch it. There we go. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're officially here, live, rocking out with you tonight. Welcome to your 7:30 tropical update. And we have a lot to discuss tonight. There's going to be quite a bit, and I thought, what better way to do it than via a live stream? So it's great to see everybody. Let's get the chat popping tonight. Give that like button a little nudge, and let's have a conversation because the National Hurricane Center homepage is extremely telling. Yesterday when I shot my video, I recorded sometime between 2 and 3 o'clock, I believe, uploaded at my usual 7 o'clock once we got our 12Z model data in. And then by 8 o'clock, we had one feature, then two features. Now we've got three features out there with a developing invest that's probably going to take on the name Dexter if it doesn't do so by the time we sit here for the 8 o'clock update, potential 8 o'clock update. No, yeah, it should still be an 8 o'clock update, if I'm correct. Yeah, it's 2 and 8, 2 and 8. So yeah, we'll see what happens at 8 o'clock. So it's great to see everybody. Let's say hello for a second. Jeremiah, Yadira, David, Matthew, Scrooge McDuck, Frosty Arcade, Jefferson Weather, Atlantic, Mr. Man, JJ, Lena, it's good to see you. TG Herman, Bears, Daddy Shark, PM, Kiara, Tanya, everybody in the chat, Chris, OTCG, and Judy Tokos. We've got a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new folks tuning in. A big thanks to all our new subscribers who've recently joined over the last couple weeks. I'm not going to waste anyone's time. We're going to have a conversation, but let's go ahead and get started. So, a very different National Hurricane Center's homepage in comparison to yesterday. Yesterday we had nothing. Then we had a lemon pop up where we now have a code red for Invest 95L. Also, fingers crossed, by the way. We need to make sure that we don't dork up the internet connection at all. I don't want this stream to start lagging up at all. So far, we've been doing very good. The weather is clear out here as well, so we have that going for us. So this is National Hurricane Center's homepage. Let me refresh it. Somebody just said that the 8 o'clock, there it is. Okay. All right, so we have 80% for 80% with AL95, Invest 95L. You can see right there, 80-80 split, 48-hour, 80% chance of development, 80% chance over the next 7 days. In this case, I'm leaning far more towards that 48-hour chance. There's no way this thing's going to take until next Sunday to get its act together. In fact, when I show you the satellite, I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's still attached to fronts. It doesn't look like it, but they haven't classified it yet, and I think this looks far better than the likes of Andrea and Barry. It's going to give Chantal a run for its money as well. We also have this area of interest out there across the Atlantic. This is an 0 for 40 split. This is where the tropical wave that I'm going to show you is getting ready to come off of Africa. In fact, we now have the little X out there. Why is my pen acting up so bad? It will not. There we go. Forgive me, I know it looks like I'm drawing circles, but for some reason I don't like the pixelated NES look that it's been doing. So bear with it. So we have our tropical wave getting ready to splash down off the west coast of Africa. We still have an 0 for 40 split with this feature because, to tell you the truth, models are still a little back and forth. The Euro is very aggressive with trying to get this thing to pivot up and out of the ITCZ and then take off towards the north. We'll talk about that discontinuity between some of the models because I'm sure a lot of you have already seen the 18Z GFS, and I'm going to show you that early on. I'm just going to get it out of the way. You're going to find it one way or another if you're a follower of any type of weather page. The 18Z GFS basically nukes Central Florida. It's a dream run for the weather weenies out there. This also came up earlier today. An 0 for 20 shot. We get another area of low pressure to form in a very familiar spot. This has been more of a hot spot this hurricane season than anywhere else, even the MDR, although I do think over the coming weeks of August, as we get deeper in, this MDR, the deep tropics, are going to give these homegrown systems a run for their money. Let me see. I see Chris Mazzell with the $10 donation. I sincerely appreciate that, Chris, a returning follower, a returning member of the community. I always sincerely appreciate your donations. So this is very interesting. And to tell you the truth, the MDR is going to continue to produce signals. In fact, even though the 12Z European model earlier today showed wave number 2, I'm calling this wave number 2, believe it or not. This is number 2 out there. Number 1 is still hanging out right in through here somewhere with some pretty good thunderstorms attached to it. Where we stand currently, this is our most favorable corner of the Atlantic. The MDR is starting to get there. This wave is going to come off at the nick of time to help catch when our favorable window begins to open up. Then we're going to have to see what happens with this because our models are really juicing this up, and I believe the 18Z Euro has a bit of a more favorable low pressure center trying to close off on its most recent model data. So with that being said, before the internet starts to lag up on us, let's go ahead and keep moving. Here is our goes east full satellite shot. Big changes as well. The Atlantic Basin still fairly quiet, though. We have a large area of high pressure, still some dry air, some continental dry air mixing in with our Saharan air layer out there. That's going to subside just as we'd anticipated as the MJO comes across, and it does seem to set up in a fairly enhanced phase in numbers 1 through 3, which is literally the definition of perfect for the Atlantic. So we'll go west to east, and we'll walk you through it. I see the chat's popping off. I do apologize. Remember, we always like to hold questions till towards the end. So grab a snack, grab a drink, sit on in. Let's get those questions going, and let's have that conversation. Kevin, good evening. Eden Rama, good to see you as well. April Claremont, thanks for tuning in. Twilight Firefly 100, Kevin Lane Ray, everybody, wonderful to see you. Wonderful in the chat. Let's get those likes up. Please hit that like button. This is our first live stream in a while, and I definitely want us to start getting back into business with this because I don't think August is going to be quiet. I really don't. Which honestly, regardless of what it is you're rooting for out there, I know a lot of us don't want landfalls. We're not tracking any imminent threats right now. We're not going to talk about landfall threats because, well, actually, we are going to mention it because of that area of interest off the southeast. I'm not going to lie to you. But in terms of long track landfalls, we're not going to go into that department. We're going to talk about the variables that could influence what happens with these waves coming off of Africa. Obviously, we all know by now 95L is just going to continue to ricochet into the upper Atlantic. That's not going to do anything for anybody. In fact, it should be far enough to the east of Bermuda to not cause any issues for them as well. Yeah, there's Bermuda, so they're going to feel little to nothing from that feature as it wanders through. In fact, this tropical wave to the south could give Bermuda a bit of an enhancement in their daily weather activity over the next 48 hours. But I mean, even from far away, looking at this satellite, that's healthy. I don't know if you all are fitness followers, but Cali muscle, that's healthy, man. That definitely looks fairly healthy out there. It's got really good convection finally starting to get over top the mid and low level center. The low level center earlier this morning when I was on broadcast at News 6, even our observed wind chart out there showed a really pronounced area of low pressure. Still did look a little frontal. There was an extension of a surface trough and northerly winds filling much of the map from the Carolina coast all the way to our Invest 95L. So by now, it looks like it's broken away. I don't really see that frontal appendage there as much anymore. There could be remnants of a stationary boundary washing out, but that definitely looks far more symmetrical tropical than it does asymmetrical, let alone subtropical. That's definitely tightened up really well. Then we're going to be watching this area of showers and storms as our wave moves into that same general quadrant. The combination of different things is what models are suddenly thinking could spin something else up. And you know what's crazy? To tell you the truth, before we continue on, a lot of folks have been bashing the GFS. I, myself included, to tell you the truth, because it's been struggling with the propagation of the Madden-Julian oscillation. I have not been a fan of the way the GFS has handled the MDR. It's finally catching up, but to tell you the truth, in this corner of the world, the GFS has been on it. Got to give credit where credit is due. The GFS has been on it with calling these circulations off the eastern seaboard of the United States and Florida. So now the question is, when this next low starts to come together, what is it going to look like, and what is the ceiling? Then the MDR. ITCZ is fairly quiet, not too much with it, and it looks like our wave doesn't have a whole lot of convection with it at this time. But when we switch on over to Oh, well, first, let's go ahead and take a look at True Color Visible Satellite before it goes out. You can see that is Invest 95L. Very clear, evident, low-level spin. We've got great convection firing over top of it. Somebody already mentioned in the chat that we have some quality outflow. It also looks like it's being ventilated by the upper trough and what was supporting the cold front to begin with. And yeah, I would honestly argue it's getting very close to decoupling from that boundary. In fact, it does look like it has already done so. Stationary boundary looks like it's back in through here. It looks like we finally have kicked it away. Now it seems like we have some spiral banding forming up on the south side right there. You can see just before the termination line of the sun comes across right there. See that band of thunderstorms that fire up along its south and east quadrant? That looks more like spiral banding of a tropical cyclone than it does frontal activity. It's not a cold front at this point anymore. You can see the jet is definitely back up in through there, helping to give this thing some quality ventilation. Not a lot of shear over top of it either. Some folks have speculated this might not have a very high ceiling. This may not form because of the wind shear, but if you look at your cirrus overcast here, the transverse banding coming out of the outflow sector on the north side of it, those clouds are very slowly moving up. Slowly moving up. Not really doing a whole lot to the center itself. So this is in a fairly good spot to just kind of keep going, especially once the sun goes down and we hit what's called diurnal maximum. So I would be very, very surprised if we don't have Tropical Storm Dexter by 11 o'clock tonight, if at the very latest by the time we wake up in the morning tomorrow. This is looking very good. We've got very good convection over top of it. Wind shear is a non-issue. You've got very good CB hot towers in there. In fact, that's definitely signs of deepening. I've been watching a lot of time lapses of the stuff that's happened in the Eastern Pacific, and anytime you see these consistent thunderstorms really blowing up with those cold cloud tops reaching into the white temperature colors there, that's a sign that we are deepening. Definitely deepening. So this is going to take on a name. I'm surprised we're only at 80%. In fact, I would have probably just nudged it to 90. To heck with it. We're already code red. We may have well gone to the 90% threshold. Now, here's a look at our hemispheric, or I should say our equatorial vorticity, 850 millibars. First and foremost, there is 95L. Not extra, actually, yeah, no, that's pretty tightly wrapped. What am I talking about? It does still look a little wrapped up with the front there, though. There's a tail. There's a tail right there. Oh, wait, whoops, hold on a second. My bad, I just realized. There we go. Let me get my big old head out of the way. So there is 95L. It does seem like it still has a bit of a tail attached to it, so maybe that's why National Hurricane Center is holding off on it. We'll probably have to give it to 11 o'clock, if not sometime during the overnight hours of tonight. I see no reason why it would not be developed. In fact, one could make a case it's probably a subtropical storm by now if we don't want to go full tropical just yet. We could still get away with naming it. I don't think anybody would be mad at it. Then, just to the immediate south, we have our tropical wave moving through the Turks and Caicos, the upper northwest periphery of Hispaniola, Haiti area, in the uppermost Caribbean there. Across the intertropical convergence zone, you can kind of see an extension of our monsoon trough energy there. We have a bit of a perturbation here, and then our next wave is getting ready to come down right now. Then this one and this one way back here over Africa. Those are definitely going to be contenders for development as well. I'll go ahead and bring my face back up as we transition further to the east side of the chart. And to tell you the truth, given the fact we've had a couple of changes, not only with the Madden-Julian oscillation, but the Mediterranean Sea cooling off on its western side, helping to kind of bring down some of that borrowing of lift and energy, definitely going to have to watch this area and then these next upcoming waves. I really do think they're going to give us a run for our money. Genuinely do think so. And so to tell you the truth, for those of you who are voting the hurricane season off, let's be real with ourselves. First of all, very slow start. I get it. It's very easy to kind of lull yourself into a false sense of security and say the season's over, it's a bust. But you look at the setup now, this is August 3rd. This is at least 3 times more active in terms of the National Hurricane Center's chart, as well as what the next 7 to 10 days look like in comparison to last year. Let's put that into perspective. We were forecasting a hyperactive season last hurricane season, and this time last year we were tracking a drive wave pretty much in the same exact spot as that first tropical wave is positioned right now just below where my face is on camera, and that turned into Debbie. But then we had nothing else out there until Ernesto perked up, I want to say about 7 to 10 days after that. This go around, we have 3 AOIs, 2 of which we're very confident will likely develop at some point, the first one being Invest 95L, and that's going to go off here within the next 12 hours, I would anticipate. Disturbance out in the Atlantic has great model support. It's got an improving environment in front of it, outside of one kicker I'll talk to you about, and then we'll have to watch off the southeast coast, and then just beyond that, 2 more waves that show promising signals over the next 10 to 14 days. I won't hold it up any longer. This is the responsible culprit as to why we're popping off the way that we are, regardless of if it's a happy hour run or not. We have a very favorable setup coming into range. The MJO is coming through, and then from about the 5th of August here in a couple days, all the way through to the tail end of the month, we're going to see the phases 2 and 3 of the MJO just kind of stuck. We're going to get that standing wave influence. So this could be a more active August than we've seen in a little bit. 2023, this might be a contender for that. 23, we had Franklin, Gert, Jose, I'm pretty sure. Jose leading into the Lee era. We also had Idalia. We had Harold in the Gulf. We had a lot of storms in the month of August for 2023. I think we're going to give that year a run for its money. 2022 was much slower. 2021 obviously was a little active. 2024 was also on the slow side for the month of August. It wasn't until we got past the first half of September before things started to really ramp up. You can also see when you switch over to your Euro extended charts, this is going to be more of your weekly charts, there is your MJO. This is out through August 18th. Notice we're still in that favorable phase. This is the 18th of August. This is my mom's birthday, and we are still rocking out there. It's still going to be in a favorable position. You fast forward another 5 days, the 19th, 20, 21, 22, 23, still favorable. We've got some of the energy starting to bleed over into the maritime continents, but a lot of it is still hung up over the Indian Ocean, the Middle East, and Central Africa. You go beyond that towards the beginning of September, we're still there. It isn't until finally, after the first couple days of September, we start to push out and we start to return to a bit of a state of normalcy. But at this point, we've got climatology on our side. So it's anybody's best guess. I don't think we're just going to continuously shut down the MDR. So regardless, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to keep watching. We're going to have to keep watching. You can even see the GEFS, the GFS ensemble, has finally caught up and is showing some forward propagation of our MJO. You can see the basin really starting to light up with those vertical velocity anomalies as we get past the next couple days. By the 6th of August and forward from there, we continue to hold that standing wave signature as it starts to move over Africa just in time for those next couple waves to come off. So we're going to have to watch very closely. So this is what we've been struggling with for starters. I'm going to walk you through the time lapse, and then this is going to be the halfway mark. I'll pause for a second to get some questions in, and then we'll keep going together. This is 95L, that pocket of lower pressure off the mid-Atlantic coast. This is an area of upper... Wow, what the heck just happened to my Epic Pen? This is an area of upper low pressure trying to stack down towards the surface. Notice where we stand right now. This is the only favorable quadrant of the Atlantic, close to home. We're still kind of kicking out some of that July signature and getting back into August. Now, as we start to move forward in time, look at what happens over the Atlantic itself, the main development region. There you have it. Now we're starting to see the sinking signal, the subsidence really begin to subside, and that's where you start to pick up your development signature. And then, yes, I'll go ahead and show you all just for shoots and giggles. Let's take a look. Oh, wait, no, this is the GEFS. Let me go to the GFS really fast, so we can rip that Band-Aid off, because like I said, you're going to see it one way or another. There goes our happy hour run of the GFS, literally nuking the east coast of Florida with a Cat 4 hurricane. Is this a doable outcome? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. That could blow a couple of minds out there. I may have lost some credibility with some folks who are either watching right now or after the fact saying I've been having someone commenting on my video saying I'm this crazy alarmist. And it's like, dude, first of all, you're cussing in front of the viewers. I don't appreciate that. Second of all, I haven't said anything crazy. I haven't at all. You guys can fact check me on that. Is this a doable outcome? I'm going to say 100% it really is. It truthfully really is. Is this the most likely outcome right now? No. And you all know I love to lean on that statement, especially when we're looking at things far away. Oh, it could very well be a Category 4. We need to recognize that. That's why I'm saying this is a doable outcome. We have some supercharged water temperatures out there thanks to our negative PNA that is held in place for several months now. It's been there kind of oscillating back and forth since about May timeframe. That's when we really started to perk up in terms of our dry season. We started to see our surface temperatures here in Central Florida and the Southeast starting to go up. We just came off of what was an historic heat wave for about 10 to 12 days, all thanks to that negative PNA. We've got 30 to 33 degree water temperatures out there, anywhere between 87 to 91 degrees Fahrenheit water temps. Very much so easy enough to produce rapid intensification, especially if you get a bona fide tropical wave to wander in there. But again, I want to repeat myself. This is not the most likely outcome right now. That's why I'm showing this to you. That's why I'm just showing it to you, because you're going to find out one way or another. There are going to be folks probably posting as we speak saying this is very concerning. We got to watch out. I'm not saying this is the most likely outcome. Is it a possible solution? 150%. Otherwise, the model would not show it. It has plenty of time over open water, and I'll show you the water temperatures right now. There you go. I'll zoom us on down in so we can get a closer look together. Bam. Very, very hot waters. 30 to 33 degrees Celsius all across this board. There's nothing cooler. You've got a couple of very tiny pockets of 28 to 29 degrees Charlie right up against the immediate Florida coastline. But obviously, we all know that's not going to make a difference. So is it a doable solution? Yes. Is it what I'm aiming for right now? No. At least, Lord, I hope not, because that's going to rearrange Florida for a while. That's for sure. All right. Now, before we continue, I'll take a couple questions. I'll get some questions out there because we've got a lot of people tuning in. Thank you all very much for taking some time out of your Sunday to join us here in the Weather Center. Please, let's go ahead and nudge that like button. I sincerely appreciate it. But if we have any questions, drop them in the chat right now, and let's have a conversation for about 5 minutes before we continue on. This is typically where at News 6 we would technically hit a commercial break, but instead I wanted to open up the floor to questions. Joker FF, can we expect hurricane season this month because we're in August now? Will it be picking up? Absolutely, it already is. It definitely already is. And I'm not talking about just strictly with development. Notice in the caption, I believe it was the caption of this video, or not the caption, but the description. It was either the community post I shared earlier today or in the description of this video, I used the terminology that this busy phase could go active. I like to make that discrimination, and since we're in a live stream, I can better explain myself without time constraints. When I say we're entering a busy phase, I'm talking a chart like this, where we have multiple signals keeping our eyes open. We have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 there, 5, even though I know that's an outlier down there. I'm not really counting that, but you all know what I'm saying. This would be a busy signature. Busy. Active would mean we have active named storms on the board. That's how I like to differentiate. So if you ever hear me say the term busy, that means we're tracking stuff. If I say we're active right now, we have multiple storms actually on the map that I'm tracking alongside with you all. The Carolinas do need to pay very close attention. The Carolinas are very much so on the board. We've been talking about it since January, February, and March. And yes, Eden, I've answered that question a number of times already. You've actually been asking that since like back in April, buddy. Weaker Bermuda high and that super El Nino of 2023 is what created all the hot water temperatures. My brother just bought a new house in Florida. That's the last, would. Naz, can we see any waves move into the Caribbean? 175%. I'm going to show you some ensembles. I really do think wave 3 and beyond that has the chance of getting into the Caribbean. It's going to be close. It's definitely going to be close. Area designated 0 for 20, think it'll become a hurricane? It has the potential. It definitely has the potential, but I'm not thinking a hurricane. Right now, I'm still investigating whether we will see development, and we'll get to that here in a second. In fact, momentarily, what I'll do is I'll jump past these ensembles, and we'll go right to some of the 18Z model data. I showed you the GFS. I know I saw a comment in my tropical chat that the 18Z Euro may have been cooking that thing off. Icon shows a promising area of low pressure retrograding back into the Carolinas. Valerie, like you just mentioned, you could take another hit. We had Tropical Storm Chantal. We have what could be future Dexter moving away, thankfully, and then we'll have to watch and see if we get Aaron. I almost had a brain lapse for a second. Aaron and then Fernand would be the one out in the Atlantic. In your opinion, do you see a lot of fish storms or do more find their way to the Caribbean? I don't know about the Caribbean, Justin, but a great question. Where I've been seeing the hotspot, the general trend since February, March, April, if you go back in time to some of our very early tropical outlooks, my general thinking was this is whereabouts we would see most of our stuff track in this hurricane season. And what's very comforting is the fact that for the last 2 weeks now, even though they've only been ensembles, we haven't had anything just form yet, even though they've only been ensembles, they've been following that exact path. That's why even though we're still such a ways out, we all got to keep an attentive eye on the tropics. And if you're out there saying that that's me being crazy, like that one dude has been saying, or that's me being Mr. Alarmist, then you're crazy, in my opinion. I say that politely. I love to have a plan for everything. And when it comes to something like a hurricane, you need to have a plan. That's also something different that I like to have stages to. There's a difference between planning, getting ready, and activating. So if you hear me say busy and active, busy means we're tracking a lot of signals. Active means we're tracking a lot of storms. When I talk about things like having a plan, that means you should just, have a general breakdown of, hey, if this happens, this is how I'm going to do this. If this were to happen, this is how I'm going to do that. When you're getting ready, that means there's something approaching. And when you're activating, that means you're within like 2 to 4 days of something coming your way. Do you think we should be concerned for Southeast Florida? Yes, I do think so. I definitely think so. A weak Bermuda high means there's no wind out there to turn up waters. It's a term called upwelling. I'd recommend doing a Google search. And understanding what upwelling is. That's what happens out there. On top of that, like I said, with a super Nino, you have all that hot water. It has to go somewhere, and it gets dispersed into the atmosphere. I fully agree with what PM said. In Alabama, yes, you need to watch. I can't say, again, we're not going to talk landfalls. I can't say if you're definitely going to or not going to, but based on what I have drawn here, if you're in this little cone here that's already started to verify, you need to watch. I mean, when you sit there and think about it, we had Invest 95L here. That was in our hotspot. We have another AOY inside our hotspot. This May, I'm still not sold on this immediately escaping out. I think we're getting a little overzealous on the Euros department, and we're still going to talk about that. And then with some of our long-range ensembles, they're still following that same direction. So everybody I don't know what's going on with my Epic pen, why that lag is going on. I'd much rather it be the pen lagging, though, than the chat. Long Island, New York needs to watch. Definitely needs to watch. Jennifer, welcome in from Jacksonville. He should watch other channels that are talking major. Yeah, there's been people saying extreme development and major hurricanes coming, and there hasn't been a signal out there. So for some folks to come after me and still say that I'm Mr. Alarmist, I don't know. I think it's just people waiting to see the little thing pop up. Weather Center Nazario uploaded a video. Let me go after him. Now, this is why I do feel like we really need to pay close attention, especially to these things that are still trying to get going off the coast. I'll let you take a mental snapshot of that. This is your negative PNA pattern. This is where if you have the United States here, forgive me for my very crude drawing. Up there goes my pen messing up again. Forgive me for my very crude drawing. There's Texas, there's the Gulf Coast, there's Florida, and so on and so forth. With a negative PNA, you get a big old ridge out here over the east, and you get a trough extending down over the Rockies out west. And with that, you have that clockwise flow around the high pressure like this. So first, good God, this pen is driving me crazy. First and foremost, whenever you have this set up over the eastern United States and more subtropical ridging out there across the Atlantic, that becomes an issue because even if you have just weak waves meandering through the pattern, they're going to get closer and closer. But the fact we have an AOI inside under the ridge, that means it's only going to have one direction to go, and it's right back towards land. It's not going to have the capability of ejecting out. Before we go any further, though, there's the Euro. You can see both of our models, the GFS ensembles and the Euro ensembles, are both projecting that as the waves keep coming off, we're going to trend back into that negative PNA with a more so neutral NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation, which is the difference between your Icelandic low up near Iceland and Greenland, low pressure up there, and then high pressure over the Atlantic. A positive phase would mean that we have very dominant pressure features. A negative phase would mean we have weak pressure features, but a blocking pattern in terms of the way our jet is configured. And that's why our pressure features are a lot more squished and consolidated down. Now, before we come back to the teleconnections, I want to see what the Euro is doing. I want to see what 18Z has for us. We're going to start with the operational Euro and take a look across the basin. Bear with me. Let's pull this 850 vorticity chart up. There is 95L front and center. That looks like a tropical cyclone right there. Not going to lie to you, that definitely looks like a tropical cyclone. Doesn't look subtropical or anything like that whatsoever. This is what we initialized, and that looks pretty healthy in terms of our 95L invest off the coast. You fast forward through time, we continue to see intensification. That's a pretty strong system right there, too. That definitely has the kind of the makings of a high-end tropical storm, if not a very brief hurricane, if it plays its cards right. Oh, yeah, look at that. There you go. Euro definitely has a feature down there, a little bit more on the consolidated side. Euro's backing off on the intensity of that next disturbance, too. If you look right here, this looks a little bit weaker than the last couple runs, and I think that's what's going to be the detriment of the European model. If I switch us over to our 500 millibar anomalies, there's that upper low right there. Breaks away from what's left over of our TUT. Right there. That's the kicker. That's the one that we've been talking about. That upper low that breaks away from what's left of that tropical upper tropospheric trough I highlighted in a couple videos ago, that is what's causing the Euro to kind of go wide right and wide left. The Euro was solid. This was going to be a west-northwest system, and then within just the last 24 hours, we opened up the corridor here, broke down our high pressure, and then introduced this upper-level cold pocket there. And I do think that's what the model is trying to show us here in attempting to weaken that system. That definitely looks a little bit weaker. It develops. It surely does develop, but that doesn't look very good. And then right off the immediate southeast coastline, we have this little bubble of low pressure right there that tries to get going. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. There you go. You can see it making a run for South Carolina, North Carolina as it tries to get better organized, although it does look to stretch out a little some on this model run as it approaches. Although it kind of looks like, this is interesting, it looks like we're going to have one vort lobe try to get sucked north, and then there's another area of amplitude increasing down on the south side of it. So that's interesting. We'll have to see what the ensembles show momentarily. In fact, they might already be in before we look at the AI model. Because to tell you all the truth, I'm not the biggest advocate of the AI model anymore. I'm really not. The AI model has lost a lot of my confidence, and I think it's been whiffing way too much with these tropical waves in the Atlantic. So here we go. There it is. All right, so we do have ensembles in. Ensembles have definitely backed off that central Atlantic system right there. Oh, no, never mind. It's about the same signal still, more or less. Out there in the southeast, we've definitely seen a tightening of our ensemble members just off the coastline of Florida right there. A couple of them trying to get further organized as it drifts towards the Florida coast. A couple of them meander right off the immediate space coast of Florida. Others completely pull it back towards the north and then head for the mid-Atlantic once again. "2004 was indeed painful. I think Louisiana is going to get hit with a major hurricane this year because my gut has been telling me that. Do you think it is a possibility? I do think it's a possibility. I'm not going to say a major hurricane, but an impact, I definitely do think so." I definitely do think so. I think the Gulf really needs to continue to pay attention. If you've been a longtime follower of my channel, I'll zoom us back out again and I'll refresh your memory. I'd been saying Eastern Gulf from the southeast tip of Louisiana to the west coast of Florida, to the east and southeast corner of Florida, and the mid-Atlantic are really going to have to pay attention in terms of potential land spot or landfall impacts. All right, let's see what the AI model has for us. Like I said, I'm not a very big advocate of this model anymore because it's been doing all kinds of funky things. But you know what? It's still a decent computer model, so we're going to take a look at it. It's had some wins, and I know it's been kind of struggling recently, but we're still going to take a look at it. So the AI model does, in fact, try to spin something up off the east coast of Florida. It parallels the coast, running through the Gulf Stream, strengthening, and then moves into South Carolina, kind of the eastern periphery of Georgia. Now, see, look at this run. This is very weird. The AI model now no longer does anything with our AOI. It does nothing. It pulls it into what looks to be remnants of a appendage left behind by what could be future Dexter here. And let me guess, before I even look at the run, this is what I'm talking about. Mark my words, chat. I have not looked at this. I promise you. I bet you 10-1 it washes out wave number 2, and I'll bet you 10-1 with wave number 3 it tries to do the same thing. It tries to rapidly intensify it and jam it into southeast Florida. How much you want to bet? You can't make this up. This is why I'm not a big. I feel like this has to be not an issue, but it has to be something with the built-in climatology. It has to be. It's seen this pattern before in its memory banks, and it's trying to force it there. It's trying to force it there. Because if I go back in time, this is literally what it did with our first wave. It's literally what it did with our second wave. Now we've jumped ship. We're not developing the second wave, and it's like, oh, wait, time out. Let's do the third wave now. And then if you notice, we have 2 more waves back behind it there. Now, I will say, with this one making a run towards Florida, I will say I believe that a little more than the second one. The second one still has the potential to do it. If you take a look at our GFS ensembles, they should be particularly, or it says good, wow, aneurysm. They should be a good portion of the way in. If you take a look at our GFS ensembles, notice that we have stronger high pressure over the Atlantic. That is your neutral NAO for sure. That's as neutral as you get. Oh, look at that. The GFS actually perking up some members in the Gulf with that feature that tries to wander its way over Florida. The second AOI out there. If you take a look at your GFS ensembles, this truthfully is a far more believable outcome, in my opinion, than what the Euro is showing. But that all hinges on that upper low. If that upper low continues to trend, it becomes a more dominant variable in the central Atlantic pattern, then obviously that could have impacts on whether this wave even develops, could increase the shear and the infavorability or the unfavorability of development, and it pulls it north, gets sucked out just like the AI model is showing. Or if it refills in with that high pressure and we dissipate that upper low, it will end up being dragged towards the west, and then it's game on for the east seaboard of the United States from Florida all the way up to Long Island, as somebody had mentioned earlier, because this is definitely a landfall pattern, big time. Definitely a landfall pattern. The Canadian model is finally waking up and smelling the coffee, just like I had said yesterday. And you can finally see we're getting some additional signals from that model as well. Have a couple of perturbed members making its way up into the central Atlantic, but then if you look down through the Caribbean in the southeast United States, we're still showing anywhere from the extreme easternmost Gulf up to just south. Kind of in the West Virginia, the Chesapeake Bay area could be an area that needs to watch. Definitely needs to watch. And that's with all 3 of our ensemble members, or ensemble computer models. The AI ensembles, I will say, have been a bit more, technically not reliable, but a little bit more believable than these rapid fluctuations that we've seen in the actual deterministic model. Let's see how far out our 18Z Euro ensembles are, the AI ensembles are. So we get some ensemble support off the southeast coast, shows a tropical storm into the mid-Atlantic or a potential crossover phenomena through the Florida Peninsula and then into the eastern Gulf. Then it looks like we have really lost A ton of, oh wait, no, silly me, I'm still on the Canadian ensembles. There we go. Are we going to go over? Why are we not going over? It's not working all of a sudden. Did I just lag out? Can I get my AI ensembles? There we go. Okay, now we're back. I don't know what was going on there. So AI ensembles, we're still picking up on some decent support in the southeast. You notice it could bubble up anywhere between the southeast U.S. into the eastern Gulf if that area of vorticity crosses over. Very favorable environment. Then you can see we're still losing ensemble support for wave 2, but there are a number of members that continue off towards the west-northwest. So it's not like that gate has fully opened. It's not like that gate is fully closed. We can't do that to ourselves, and we still don't have either feature on the board. We don't have an upper low. We don't have an area of low pressure. We don't have a disturbance. We don't have an invest. So there's still going to be some windshield wiping that goes on here. Then you take a look down there, and we have some really good ensemble support for the upcoming waves. And by this point, if you recall, and you take a look back at our oscillations or our teleconnection patterns, that's when it becomes a bit more believable. You get your negative PNA, which is an extension of ridging over the eastern United States, and our NAO trends to neutral. So we have just an average area of central Atlantic high pressure. That could be doable pending any weak short waves or frontal systems that may still be meandering through the pattern. So as we go through August, that landfall pattern is, I'm so sorry, something we're going to have to watch very closely. Something we'll have to watch very closely. And then the key takeaway here is if I switch over to our 12Z Euro ensembles, show you the extended range Euro. Key takeaway here is we have more signals to come. Look at that next one right there, really picking up ensemble support. That's our third wave. Lots of major hurricane members in there. Most definitely. So we'll have to watch very closely. And I do think given this issue here with our upper low, Wave 2 is still to be determined, but Wave 3, once everything fills back in, is what we're going to have to watch. I'll show you that very quickly here. This is our 12Z Euro ensemble, or 12Z Euro operational model. You can see that subtropical ridge, very, very, very dominant Atlantic Canada high pressure ridge, really good ridging up there over Quebec, Ontario, James, and Hudson Bay, and the northeast United States. But there's our upper cold pocket. That is a quality escape route for anything that may be trying to flare up in the MDR. That is your escape route. We've got ridging still over the eastern United States, ridging in the extreme eastern Atlantic, so you've got nowhere to go besides the path of least resistance. And then if you go forward a couple more panels of the European model, it stays there. Notice that weakness stays in place. There goes our feature forming up at 12Z, gets picked up and pulled out. But then look at this. See how that ridging very quickly builds back in by the 15th? And then we are back under a fairly amplified ridge pattern. That is where we'll have to pay close attention to what's still meandering off the coast of Africa. The GFS is a little bit more concerning. If I go back to 12Z to give us a level playing field, you'll notice that the upper low does show itself. Jesus, there we go. The upper low does show itself, if I can get this to cooperate. There we go. Anyways, the upper low does show itself, but the GFS kicks it out a little bit faster and allows the ridging to build back in quicker. Let me just fast forward to the valid time. We'll go 144 hours out. There you have it. You can see by August 9th, we're already starting to backfill the pattern with additional subtropical ridging out there, which is something we'll have to pay close attention to. There's a lot of volatility in our pattern out there. There's a lot that can still change, and I don't want all of us to put all of our ducks in a basket. All our eggs in a basket? Geez. I mean, I would love to have a bunch of ducks in a basket. That'd be adorable, especially if they're baby ducks, but you all know what I mean. So with that being said, let's open up the floor to questions. That's all she wrote. That is all she wrote. I'll take any questions or comments that you all may have. By the way, thank you so much for the other person who dropped a donation in the chat. Let me go back up and find it. I do apologize. I didn't mean to ignore you. I swear that's not what I was doing. Oh, man, can I not go all the way back up? What a shame. All right, so do I have any questions in the chat before we wrap up? I'll take another 5 minutes, and then, oh, there it is. Jason Bewley, what's going on? Thank you very much. Sup, my dude. Thank you so much for the $2 donation. All right, so are the ocean temp anomalies still of the North Atlantic similar to 2004? Kind of. We have seen pretty much warmth building in across the spectrum. Let's go to your SST. We'll switch over to the anomalies. We're starting to lag. We got to be careful here. I think we're finally running out of bandwidth for the night. Here's our sea surface temperature anomaly, and you can see we have warmed up pretty good. In fact, we have a bit of a cool bubble starting to form in the subtropics, which is only going to help our case in terms of trying to develop some additional instability out there in the Atlantic. Does the Windward Island have to keep an eye? Absolutely, Wazim. I do think so. Does all of this reinforce your 04 analog? I think so. I think so. It's that sneaky back pocket analog in terms of some similarities out there. Gregory, you're very welcome. You're very welcome from Florida to Alabama. Can the third wave pass as far south as the Windward Islands? Yes. That's actually something I believe the 12Z European model showed to us earlier today. Let me make sure that I don't freeze us up. We've been doing fantastic tonight. But I do believe that the 12Z today showed that third wave making a run through the Caribbean. Yeah, there you go. Passing right over the Windward Islands and then developing down the road in the Caribbean before approaching the Yucatan Channel. This would be a good outcome for a lot of us. A bad outcome for Central America. I'm not wishing this on anybody, but this would definitely keep us out of the realm of a landfall because of that negative PNA. You can see right there, we got that big old anticyclone right over the eastern United States. There's our protective blister. If I can get this to focus up, there we go. There's our negative PNA pattern. So we'll have to watch this, this, and this. You know, all of us just have to kind of pay attention. I'm not trying to broad brush anything. I promise you, everybody out there needs to pay attention because this is a night and day difference from this time last year. You take a look at 700 millibars and you can take a look at where your amplified waves are. We've got a lot of candidates out there for development. I'm not saying they're all going to. Naturally, you're only going to get about 30-40% of them to actually develop. But if you think about it, we already had 1, 2, 3 different features at this point. This is now the 18th of August, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we were hypothetically speaking, if we were to hypothetically say each of these were to develop, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we were to win the tropical lottery, we have 7 potential named storm candidates for the month of August. And this is only the 18th of August. We saw earlier that that favorable signal is still going to be lingering out there as we get closer to September. So I should have wore the pin tonight. This is, I would say, DEFCON 4 of hold on to your butts. DEFCON 4. I'm going to use the 5 DEFCON phases. This is DEFCON 4 of hold on to your butts big time. Because we could have anywhere between an additional 3 to, if not maxing out, 7 named storms this month alone. And you can't argue with the data. I'm not just making that up. I'm, making a random prediction that, yeah, based on the pattern, there's the chance we see so much development. It's like, no, it's just our models are all signaling. Even the GFS and other long-range ensembles are showing we've got a lot of different individual signals out there that could try to get going. While we have this favorable window open. We'll have to wait and see. Models are consistently showing development, so all we can do now is continue to monitor trends and track. That's why we're on DEFCON 4 of hold on to your butts. Let me see if I can get that to register through the mic real quick. I have a... Let's see. I hope I'm not going to mess anything up right now.
Hold on to your butts.
There we go. We're signaling it. We're going to do it one more time.
Hold on to your butts.
Yep, there it is. DEFCON 4. September very well could be active. And yes, big time thank you, One Nation Weather. I really, really appreciate you checking in on the chat. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Good friend up there in the Carolinas, another weather content creator, great content, great channel, very supportive, very, very accommodating individual. Love to have you with us tonight, and thank you for the $1 donation. It's sincerely appreciated, genuinely. And then April Claremont, a longtime member of the channel, member of the community, has been tracking with us since the good old days of 2023. We're actually getting close to the 2-year anniversary. I want to go back in time and see. Actually, no, you know what? I think we just hit 2 years because I remember I did that faceless, very dull first video on this channel at the very beginning of August, because I remember my thumbnail was this cheapo looking welcome to August with a bunch of arrows all over it. So yeah, we just hit 2 years on this YouTube channel. So we've had a really good stretch, and now we're going again. As Bill Paxton said in the OG Twister back in the day, we're going to be tracking the tropics left and right. Silver Steel S, thank you very, very much for the $10 donation. I do really appreciate it. Latasha, let's go ahead and take a look at trade wins before we close out. I got to get off here in a second. I have another early day. I got a full week ahead. And to tell you the truth, with how much the tropics are blowing up out there, I'm going to need as much rest as I can get in between other things. So trade wins are going to continue to decrease. If you notice, as we get deeper into the month of August, the graveyard becomes a lot more scarce. The purples here indicate a weakening in our easterly trade winds. Where you still see the pockets of stronger winds, you still have some easterly fetch going on through that area. And in my personal opinion, let me go, where is my, let's see, is it this? Here we go. I like to use this model a little bit more so. So as you can see, you go forward in time and you start to get, actually, you know what? That doesn't look all that favorable. What is going on here? That does not look favorable at all. That's different. Why is it showing a bunch of wind shear out there? Oh, that's why. I'm so sorry. I was going to say, that definitely doesn't look very favorable in terms of our overall pattern, but that's because we have a tropical cyclone developing in the Caribbean, so obviously it's going to up our wind shear. Earlier on, though, to give you a better look, this is what we're looking at. There is that tut right here. You can see the tut extending back through. That's what's going to break off that upper low. You can kind of see it right there already. The extreme leftmost portion of that tut. That is a wave break right there. You get a really strong mid-latitude jet, your polar front jet. There's an anticyclone. When that wave breaking happens, you get that tut, a positive vorticity streamer. And that's what's going to help to influence the central Atlantic just in time for our next wave to come off. We get that breakaway pocket right there of upper low. That's a tropical upper tropospheric low pressure system there. So trade winds in the Caribbean are going to continue to subside, especially as we get lowering pressures through much of the tropics. That's going to reduce that wind corridor through there. So August is going to become a bit more favorable. South Florida Train Spotter, who's pre-naming storms? Nobody has done that. I even mentioned that in my video yesterday and earlier today. I'm not going to do no pre-naming storms. Can't stand when people do that. If you're misconstruing what I said earlier, I said we have 7 candidates. 7 candidates for named storms. I didn't say I'm naming them. I even said we would need to win the tropical lottery in order to see 7 additional named storms. On average, you only get about 30 to 40% to develop, which is why I started out my number with 3 named storms this month, but up to 7, give or take the signals we see out there out to August 18th. So very different than last year, very different than what we were tracking this time last year. Last year, we only had Debbie to watch out for and all that, so we definitely have a lot to monitor. Scrooge McDuck is asking about the UK Met. Let me see what we've got going on with the UK model. It is in. So the UK does try to develop our area of low pressure. Kind of keeps it as a bit of an open disturbance, though, as it crashes over Central Florida. There's your Central Florida solution. And then, yeah, the UK model tries to build it up in the Gulf right there. So the UK is very interesting. It brings our little area of low pressure, rocks it over the coast of Florida, and then tries to do a 93L rerun for basically the 3rd or 4th time over. There goes our Atlantic disturbance, finding that escape route up and out, and then here comes our next 2 waves. You can see on the UK model also showing those things out there. So for the person who said pre-naming storms, I told you we're not pre-naming storms. I'm just highlighting just how busy of a signal we have. Remember the difference, busy versus active. Active would mean we've got storms out there. We're not active yet. We're busy. We're not active yet. We have no named storms out there. But you can see even the UK model shows a pretty busy signature here. We have 3 right here. If my cursor would cooperate, I'm starting to get annoyed with that. We have 3 signals here, 1, 2, and then 3. Then you fast forward to the end of the loop and check that out. We have 1, 2, and then another one out. Well, no, actually, I lied. That's the same one still. Sorry. But 5 signals and just 160 some odd hours. So that's what I mean by the difference between busy and active. If all of these or some of these were to develop, we're active. We've got storms on the board and they're moving, they're accruing ace, they're strengthening, weakening, etc., yada, 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 so on and so forth. So yeah, there we go. 2025 could be a lot of us year. I don't want to compartmentalize individual states. I'm not going to do that. We're still too far away from a lot of these things, that's for sure. Latasha, the Bermuda High is going to be on average. The Bermuda High is going to be pretty much in the general position that you would see it in a neutral phase. Neutral ENSO, neutral NAO, just kind of a neutral Atlantic high pressure. What's very tricky, though, is going to be the PNA. The PNA out here. The Atlantic high pressure is just going to keep doing its thing. It's not going to be overly strong anymore. Well, we're going to have, let me not put myself in a trap there. Atlantic high pressure is going to be average. I'm not going to say it's going to be over strong or anomalously strong. I'm not going to say it's going to be weakened like 2023, like a strong El Nino pattern. But I will say it is going to be present. So that's why we need to be watching from the East Coast to the Eastern Gulf especially. Now, obviously, if we get things in the Caribbean and things in the Gulf, everybody is on watch. Let me also communicate that since we are live here. Anything coming from the Atlantic, I would encourage easternmost United States from Louisiana to Florida and then up the East Coast to pay attention. Obviously, if anything gets into the Caribbean or we get another gyre situation or a late bloomer in the Gulf, then everybody out there needs to pay attention. I'm not discriminating or kind of keeping anybody out there, nor am I comfortable with saying this state, yes and no. I'm not going to do that. We've got a lot of things out there moving around, so we'll have to see. The Central American gyre has already happened. We had that back in late May and then through a lot of June. It's probably going to make a return as we get closer to October and November. That could be another surprise tick up in the activity department next time our MJO makes another pass. Dry air is continually improving, Kevin Rivera. Will Lee County, Florida be spared, or will I need to full steam I-75 north? Now, Aaron, I can't tell you that right now. We don't have anything active on the board right now. We're just watching right now. That's all we're doing. We're just watching. But all right, we're going to go ahead and close out the live stream. I got to figure out when it is I'm going to do another one, perhaps by Wednesday. We'll do another live stream. I'll hold off on doing these. I don't want to inundate you with live streams now. I've been doing very good with the videos. I'm going to continue to do my 3 uploads per week, give or take, depending on what's out there. It could be 4. You can also catch me over at News 6 here in Central Florida. And then I'm going to start doing maybe 2 live streams a week. Like I said, I don't want to inundate you all with repetitive content. If we're looking at stuff far away, I'm not going to tell you the same thing over and over again. I can do community posts or very short abbreviated updates for that. Things moving around at once, then yeah, we'll start to do a stream or 2 per week, and we'll continue our usual videos being uploaded throughout the week. And then as things percolate or things trend back, we'll adjust. Because I also don't want to burn myself out. I already know this week is going to be very busy at the studio for certain. With a map like this and something near Florida now, we're going to be talking tropics a lot over at News 6. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you've had a great weekend. I hope that you have a solid start to the first full week of August. I hope August treats you well. And we'll take one last look together before we close out what Invest 95L is doing out there and take a look at some of the intensity models. If this decides to populate. Computer is starting to run slow. We got to be careful. We may lag out of here. I don't want to lag out. We've been doing well. Yep. All right. I'm not going to tempt fate. We're lagging up big time, so I'm going to get ready to close out the stream. Sorry about that, folks. See you again very soon. Be on the lookout for our next update, probably tomorrow. Going to have another video up and ready for you at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for all the generous donations tonight. It's amazing to see you all in the chat. We have the best community easily on YouTube, 150%. We're a very close-knit people. We're a very close-knit neighborhood. And what I love about it is we're not afraid to share opinions and have some collaboration and some conversation in the chat either. It's never an end-all, be-all. I don't know everything. I love getting the feedback. I love hearing the input. And I love just talking to everybody. It's been fantastic. 2 years in the running now to communicate with everybody. So I sincerely mean that. I'm going to be working hard to make sure I get you the information that you need to stay ahead of the tropics because, boy, like I said,
Hold on to your butts.
we've got action out there. But until next time, folks, it's been a pleasure. This is Weather Center Nazario signing out.